Hello, 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 and welcome to Learn English Live 18. My name is Steve Ford, and I am happy you have joined me here for our lesson. Today, I have an interesting question which I quite often get from my students every day. Every day. This question is related to students who've studied English for some time but feel they just can't speak properly. So here we have a question from a physicist from Slovakia who wrote to me on my Facebook page, and I said, "That's a great question. Could you record it and send it to me by email?" Well, he did, and here's Mikel's question.
Hello Stevie, in the beginning, I'm sorry if I bother you with my question. I have been studying English for 2 years and a half. I can understand native speakers, music, movies and whatever. But the problem is that I cannot express myself very well. I have to stop and think about the language. I mean, the words don't come automatically. What should I do? Thanks for everything. I really appreciate your videos. Thank you so much for your answer.
Mikel, your question caught my attention because I know how important it is to gain self-confidence speaking a language. So I'm going to share some of my teaching experience and also my learning experience with other languages to set you on the right track. What do you need your English for? This is the first question that you should ask yourself when you feel you're not speaking as well as you'd like. Are you learning English for pleasure, travel, work, studies, romantic relationship, immigration? Once you know where you're headed, it's a lot easier to know what kind of level you want to speak. What I notice with my own students is that they tend to specialize in one kind of English. So if you're a physicist and you're explaining physics, I'm sure that you would be able to blow me away with your English. So when my students who are business professionals talk about work and finance, their level of English is way up there, and so is their level of self-confidence. The same goes for my students who are doctors and professors. You get them talking about urology, paleontology, biology, dermatology, and they have a good command of English. But if we change the topic and go on to small talk, suddenly they get tongue-tied. I imagine that's the same for you, Mikel. One part of my lessons that my students really enjoy is trying to find equivalent word forms for one specific word. Example, adverb, adjective, verb, noun. So let's take the word child. Childishly, childish, and no verb, and then child. Let's try one more. Bored. Boringly, bored, boring, to bore, and boredom. Maybe you didn't know that one. Now, let's say you out there watching my lesson also keep note of new words. Highlight the ones that you like, but you have no native speakers to practice with. It happens. Luckily, with the internet, we have a lot of English learners helping each other out on Skype. Now, some students are worried about learning bad speaking habits from other students. So what's your alternative? If you simply want to improve with native speakers, well, this same situation happened to me when I was learning Portuguese more than 20 years ago. I was living in Canada doing self-study by reading and watching TV programs, listening to music, and so on. I had a notebook of expressions and vocabulary, and I had to search around town and ended up finding this little old lady, sweet old lady, who happened to speak Portuguese. So I would go to her house once a week and we would talk about this and that over a cup of coffee. I also used to try and think in Portuguese constantly. I would create hypothetical situations where someone would pose a question to me and I would try to answer. I didn't care that I'd be walking down the street and mumbling Portuguese, eu sou você é, to myself, since I wanted to go back to Brazil and I knew that I needed to practice any way I could. Well, here are some student pet peeves. Depend of instead of depend on. In the internet instead of on the internet. Many children's instead of many children. Conditionals. If I will go, I will tell you. If I go, I will tell you. If I would go, I would tell you. If I went, I would tell you. And when I like to point out to my students ASAP, I feel myself. I was curious to see this happening with all of my students who particularly speak Slavic and Romantic languages. I always say, be careful. In English, feel is just feel. I feel fine. If you say, I feel myself, it means it means you're touching yourself, so be careful. Well, Mikkel and everybody out there watching this lesson, I hope I was able to share some of my teaching experience to help encourage you with your English learning. All of these mistakes are many times unconscious, but with a little self-correction, you can become more aware and improve. I see many students improving day by day. We'll catch you later and see you online. Bye for now. And one I like to point out to my students ASAP, I feel myself. I was curious to see this happening with all of my students who particularly speak Slavic and Romantic languages. Romantic? Yes, only in Romania we feel ourselves. Bloopers. No offense to the Romanians, it should be romantic.